CEC employee to the USG Ishimura. The Ishimura was the first Planet Cracker-class vessel and is now the oldest serving, with 62 years of continuous service. Its dead weight of refined product at 14 trillion kilotons and counting. Workforce on the colony, the captain and crew would like to welcome you, and we hope your stay is a pleasant one.
This is Jason Wiggins with the USG Ishimura. Sending a distress signal. If you're receiving this, you need to listen. The USG Ishimura. No, Dead Space. It's real. And it's coming to Halloween Horror Nights. What's waiting for you isn't just some cheap scare. The necromorphs, the terror, it's more real than you ever could imagine. The unitologists have recreated the Ishimura perfectly, and they're using it to lure healthy men, women, and children and convert them to these monstrosities. Don't let marketing fool you. This isn't for the faint of heart. They're not costumes. They're not actors. They're real-life killers. Don't make the same mistake we did. If you step into Dead Space at Halloween Horror Nights, you'll be stepping into your worst nightmare. And there's no checkpoint. There's no respawn. This is a one-way trip. Consider this your warning. If you go, don't expect to come out alive.
In the last video, we journeyed through the post-apocalyptic nightmare of Left 4 Dead 2 and envisioned how it would translate into a haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights. This time, we're leaving the ground behind and taking terror to the stars, where survival isn't just about fear, it's about silence and what lurks within it. In today's video, we'll transform the sci-fi horror of Dead Space into an unforgettable haunted house experience at HHN. Brace yourself for a trip to the USG Ishimura, where isolation is deadly, and the only thing more terrifying than the silence is what's waiting to break it. Halloween Horror Nights is famous for bringing horror games to life, and there's no better candidate for a haunted house than Dead Space. With its claustrophobic corridors, grotesque necromorphs, and relentless atmosphere, this game is practically begging to be translated into a terrifying live experience. One that could rival even the most intense haunted houses at HHN. So, let's dive into how we convert the USG Ishimura into one of HHN's most unforgettable haunted houses. For those unfamiliar with Dead Space, the game follows Isaac Clarke, an engineer who was part of a rescue team sent to the USG Ishimura, a giant mining ship that has mysteriously gone silent. The Ishimura is overrun by horrifying creatures called necromorphs, reanimated corpses twisted by an alien artifact known as the Marker. As Isaac navigates the ship, he faces not only these grotesque enemies, but also his crumbling sanity, driven by haunting hallucinations of his girlfriend, Nicole, who was part of the Ishimura's medical team. The story unfolds as Isaac learns about the Marker's dark influence, which led to the ship's downfall. He must fight through various necromorphs and confront the source of the outbreak while grappling with his own sanity. Ultimately, the game culminates in a tense showdown where Isaac destroys the Marker, but the ending leaves him questioning his own fate and the reality of his experiences. Overall, Dead Space explores themes of isolation, madness, and the dangers of obsession, all set against a chilling sci-fi horror backdrop. Now, I have a personal history with Dead Space. My first encounter with it, I played about 5 minutes of the demo in 2010 on the Xbox 360. Now listen, the demo is much longer than 5 minutes, but let me be honest, 10-year-old me didn't play much of it because I was scared shitless. But recently, although I was still scared shitless, I played through the entirety of the Dead Space remake, and let me tell you, it absolutely has HHN worthy written all over it. The blend of sci-fi and horror is unlike anything else, and it's the kind of fear that'll linger long after the experience is over.
Venue selection.
When it comes to the haunted house location at HHN, Dead Space deserves a prime spot in one of the sound stages at the front of the park. Now hear me out, while Left 4 Dead 2 found its home in another area of the park, Dead Space needs the atmospheric control of a soundstage. A place where the tight corridors and eerie soundscapes of the Ishimura can come to life. A controlled environment like this is perfect for recreating the oppressive, claustrophobic atmosphere of the game.
Queue experience.
For this specific venue, it's really rare to see projections in the queue line. Usually the most that we get are screens on the concert stage showing promotional material for the entirety of the event. But for Dead Space, we're upping the ante. Imagine a projection further into the line, displaying security cam footage of abandoned hallways, flickering lights, and necromorphs crawling out of the vents. If you're familiar with the game, this would get your nerves going before you even step inside. The atmosphere should start unsettling you the moment that you enter that line.
Artwork and design.
Just like we did for Left 4 Dead 2, the artwork for the haunted house could play with iconic imagery from the game. The Ishimura itself could serve as the backdrop for the poster, with Isaac's helmet glowing ominously in the darkness. We could also incorporate the terrifying marker symbol, illuminated in a way that gives off a foreboding red glow. This visual introduction immediately tells fans that they're in for a wild ride.
Setting and atmosphere.
Unlike Left 4 Dead 2, Dead Space takes place all within one large area, the USG Ishimura, which is essentially a character in its own right. The Ishimura provides plenty of haunting locales to explore, though we won't be able to cover the entirety of the ship. So, let's focus on key areas that could create an immersive experience for this haunted house. Like
The flight deck.
the haunted house walkthrough will begin in the flight deck, just as Isaac and his crew do when they arrive at the Ishimura. This setting works as the perfect entry point because it mirrors the beginning of the game, giving guests that same eerie sense of isolation right from the start. The flight deck represents the initial calm before the storm. It's an industrial, empty space with alarms echoing and machinery clanking in the background, signaling that something has gone terribly wrong. The wide open feel at first seems like a reprieve from the claustrophobia to come, but the sounds of distant crashes and malfunctioning equipment will unsettle guests before the real terror begins. This is where we introduce tension through the environment, making guests wonder what's lurking just out of sight.
The security station.
Next, guests will move to the security station, an area meant to be safe, but now overrun and in absolute chaos. This is a critical turning point because it amplifies the fear by stripping away the idea of a safe zone. The psychological horror of walking into a supposed safe haven only to find it destroyed ramps up tension and keeps the guests on edge. With overturned furniture, broken terminals, and bloodstains smeared across the wall, guests will realize that no place on the Ishimura is truly safe. By adding flickering lights and distorted security footage of necromorphs stalking through the hallways, the haunted house emphasizes the unpredictability of danger, building a sense of dread as the guests continue through the experience.
The main laboratory.
The main laboratory is where the true horrors of the Ishimura become visceral. This room is perfect for grotesque visual horror. Scattered body parts, broken medical equipment, and evidence of failed horrific experiments. The stark, sterile nature of the lab contrasts sharply with the blood and the carnage, creating a disturbing juxtaposition that unsettles the mind. For fans of body horror, this is where we can really bring out the shocking elements. Grotesque specimens in jars, autopsy tables drenched in blood, and lab notes that hint at the cruel experiments conducted on the necromorphs. What makes this area even more terrifying is that it also represents the dangers of unchecked scientific ambition. a theme that can resonate with guests as they witness the consequences of trying to control an alien artifact beyond human understanding.
Dr. Mercer's office.
Dr. Charles Mercer is one of the most unsettling characters in Dead Space, and his room will reflect his twisted psyche. Stepping into his space will be like entering the mind of a madman. His obsession with the marker drives him to conduct cruel experiments, and guests will experience the fruits of his madness firsthand. This room should feel claustrophobic and filled with disturbing details. I mean, scrawled notes on the walls, specimens pinned up for observation, and maybe even holograms of Mercer giving chilling monologues about his research. By making guests feel as though they're intruding on his personal space, this room heightens the sense of invasion and discomfort. The isolation of this room adds another layer to the psychological horror. Guests will feel like they're alone with Mercer's madness, and they'll be on edge waiting for the next threat to emerge.
The engine room.
The engine room is ideal for a more physical, visceral form of terror. The labyrinthine structure, with its maze-like narrow walkways and catwalks suspended over industrial equipment, disorients guests, making them feel vulnerable. This area can create intense moments of suspense, as the confined spaces leave little room to escape. The layout is perfect for jump scares and ambushes. Necromorphs can appear out of nowhere, hiding around corners or bursting out from behind massive machines. Guests will feel like they're constantly being watched or stalked in this space, which feeds into the fear of being trapped and hunted. The overwhelming sound of machinery grinding and alarms blaring in the background adds to the tension, making the guests feel like something is going wrong at all times.
The common area.
The common area will offer a different kind of horror. It reveals the psychological corruption of the marker. This area is where the human crew's descent into madness becomes clear. The once living spaces of the crew are now twisted by violence and chaos. Guests will see bloodied walls, broken furniture, and the remnants of a massacre, leaving them to wonder whether or not the real threat is the necromorphs or the humans who have succumbed to the marker's influence. This space will have a heavier atmosphere, one that makes guests question what's worse, the physical monsters or the psychological breakdown that turns humans into savages. This mix of emotional and physical horror makes the common area a vital part of the haunted house experience, playing on the fear of losing one's humanity.
Aegis 7.
For the finale, we move to Aegis 7, the planet where the marker was found and the setting for the game's final battle. Here, guests will face a chaotic onslaught. The necromorphs are attacking in full force, and the hive mind looms large. The sense of impending doom is amplified by the sight of the Ishimura falling from the sky, about to crash into the planet. This finale will be an intense sensory overload, with constant necromorph attacks from all angles and the visuals of the destruction all around. Guests will feel the urgency of escape, as though they're running out of time to survive. It's a high-stakes, high-action climax that leaves guests breathless as they rush towards the exit, hoping to make it out alive. With our key locations now selected, we will begin to dive into the characters and monstrosities that will either try to protect you, convert you, or much, much worse. The haunted house wouldn't be complete without our key Dead Space characters, those being Isaac Clarke, Nicole Brennan, Zach Hammond, Kendra Daniels, and Dr. Chalice Mercer. These pivotal characters add depth to the story. Now, shifting away from the human side of things and diving into the monstrous side of it, we have the necromorphs. Now, when it comes to the necromorphs, there isn't just one type. There are many. And trust me when I say they will all be making an appearance. The slashers, lurkers, brutes, hunters, the Leviathan, every monster, and I mean everyone, will be present on the USG Ishimura and Aegis 7. Oh yeah, and the hive mind too.
Holy shit!
And there you have it. That is Dead Space turned into... Oh, how could I forget? My favorite section. The good old Easter eggs. Now, while I haven't played Dead Space 2 or Dead Space 3, there are plenty of iconic nods from the original game that fans will recognize. So, let's get to it. Or should I say, let's get cracking. Get it? Because the USG Ishimura is a planet cracker. Never mind. The upgrade bench. In Dead Space, the upgrade bench is a crucial gameplay element that allows players to enhance their weapons and equipment. Upgrades typically involve enhancing damage, capacity, reload speed, and other attributes, making it essential for survival against increasingly tough enemies. This would be a really cool piece to have in the experience. There could be multiple of these located in the house, and after each one, the necromorph attacks can get progressively worse. Isaac's rig. Isaac Clarke's rig, or resourceful integration gear, in Dead Space is a vital component of both his character and gameplay mechanics. Now, the rig is an integral part of Isaac's identity as an engineer. It highlights his technical expertise and resourcefulness as he adapts to the horrors of the USG Ishimura. The suit's functionalities mirrors the challenges he faces, emphasizing themes of survival and adaptation in a hostile environment. As I stated before, as the game progresses, Isaac can acquire different rig suits, each with unique designs and bonuses. These variations allow players to customize their experience and reflect Isaac's development throughout the game. With the release of this remake, there were several different suits that can be unlocked and worn for the campaign. So, as guests venture through this experience, it would be dope to walk through an armory of some sort so that we can see all of these rigs brought to life. Weapons galore. Throughout the entirety of this campaign, Isaac comes across a plethora of different weapons that are all used for the same task, destroying the necromorphs. These weapons are a keen item to survival and can really get you out of sticky and intense situations. As Isaac comes across these weapons, he usually either finds them in a maintenance room of such or on a fallen crew member's body. That being said, some of these weapons can be seen as such in this experience, but for others, we have to see them in action in some way, shape, or form. I mean, come on. These are completely badass. Inventory items. In Dead Space, inventory items play a crucial role in survival, combat, and progression through the game. As a player, every time you saw that blue light emitting off of the front of a locker, you knew you were about to find something helpful, whether it be ammo, credits, stasis packs, or much more. Seeing these lockers in this experience, or even the specific items lying around, would be very close to the original source material and would make for a great addition to this experience. And there you have it. Dead Space turned into a haunted house at none other than Halloween Horror Nights. What did you think of this concept? Was there something that you wish we included? Let me know in the comments and we can discuss. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please feel free to like and subscribe. Oh, and one more thing.
I wish I was just